Hey, booktube. It's almost as if there's so much of me today that you'll never get sick of me or something. But I promise this is the last video, okay, for today. This is the crap. What is it called? I'm the worst person at tags. It's the SciFi Fantasy tag that Richardson Reads tagged me in. And I guess it was on Little Red Reviewer first, if that's correct. So, I don't read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, but I probably read more of it than people who don't read it at all. That doesn't really help matters much. So what is the first vintage sci-fi fantasy book you ever read? Oh, and it's a vintage tag too. Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb here because even though this is considered a horror novel, I still think it's a science fiction thing. And that's Frankenstein. And this isn't the one, but it was a little it was a little abridged version that I got when I was in elementary school from one of those like Scholastic fill stuff in. And then you get your stickers and your books and your posters of like deflated looking dogs, you know. And I was looking for it and I can't find it anywhere. And I'm really bummed out. But I know it's here because I've seen it recently. I just have no idea where it is in here. Let me see. What is your favorite vintage sci-fi fantasy book? This could have been any from this author, but I'm going to go with the one that I read last, and that's Galapagos by Kurt Vonnegut. Now, I think a lot of people don't give Kurt Vonnegut credit. Actually, this might be from 1980, which would F everything up. Let me check real quick. Yeah, I'm going to pull this back, and we'll do Slaughterhouse 5. That was 85, and it's got to be pre 1980. So this one here is what is it? 69? No, it's got to be earlier than that. Maybe not. Well, this one was published in 69. Is there? Nope, there's not one of those either. I am totally botching this whole video. Okay, now, a lot of people don't think of Kurt Vonnegut as science fiction. They think of him more as like a satirist. But most of his books have very strong science fiction elements. Like this one, Billy Pilgrim becomes unstuck in time and goes to the past, goes to the future. He's a zoo exhibit on another planet. So this is like very strong sci-fi elements. Sirens of Titan is another one of my favorites. Cat's Cradle, even Player Piano has elements of science fiction, like where the machines take over the workforce and people have no jobs anymore. And I think if you haven't read Vonnegut, going in with that knowledge that there's going to be some pretty heavy sci-fi elements, and it's going to be freaking hysterical and touching and moving. I think you can't go wrong with Kurt there. Um, Favorite vintage sci-fi fantasy book cover. This was the first question in this whole thing that I was like, hands down, I already know the answer to. And I could say it could be anything by Frank Frazetta, but it's definitely this one. Because that tiger looks so cool. Yeah, it's because of the tiger. The tiger. This is Escape on Venus. I love Frank Frazetta, and my dad used to have a ton of Frank Frazetta prints hanging up in the house, and he had T-shirts of him in that Boris somebody. I think he just died, if I'm not mistaken. But all the sword and sorcery, fantasy posters and covers and stuff like that. But this was always my favorite. So I can't wait to get to these books. I'm going to wait until I finish the other ones, though. So, and then a lot of the rest of this is going to be Edgar Rice Burroughs, because I've been reading a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs right now. So which vintage sci-fi fantasy books are in your TBR? Basically a bunch of Edgar Rice Burroughs. I'm going through the Barsoom series right now, the John Carter series. I have a few more books from the Pellucidar series. That's another Frazetta cover that I love, actually. Yeah, so I'm just on like a total kick right now, and I do that with authors. I won't read anything but their stuff until I get sick of it. How many vintage sci-fi fantasy books have I read in the last year? I think today would be 27. So, it's actually quite small compared to. Oh wait, no, because I read some of the Star Trek books too. But in all honesty, it's quite small because compared to how many books I've read, I think I've read almost 200 books. So it's like an eighth, maybe, or something like that, that are in my TBR. And then where do I buy books? Well, me and Zoe talk about like these intentional book hauls and unintentional book hauls. The unintentional book hauls is where we just see a thrift store or we see a used bookstore and we slam on the brakes and go in and buy anything we want. Intentional is when we either go to like a Barnes and Noble looking for something in particular, or we go and get stuff on Amazon or eBay. So for all of my Edgar Rice Burroughs and my Kurt Vonnegut, although the Kurt Vonnegut books I'm collecting, the Galapagos one I showed you, I want that whole series. So those I could get at either Barnes and Noble or online for hella cheap. So there's that. But like all of the vintage like Frazetta cover books, and even those Del Rey Martian Tales books, those I get online. because, and usually not on like Thrift Books or Abe, because unless you know the exact ISBN number for the cover you want, there's a good possibility you're not going to get it. So I usually do lots on eBay for those books. There's always good lots on eBay. So there's that. But I guess that's it. I kind of burned through this, and I tag anybody and everybody who wants to do this. I don't know exactly how many people who watch this actually read vintage sci-fi, and the people that I would have tagged, Richardson Reed's already tagged. So that sounds pretty chill to me, yo. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the little bell for notifications. Tomorrow I'm going to have a couple more book reviews, and I'm going to show you the best comic that came out in the last like month tomorrow that you need to go out and buy it immediately. So until next time, everybody.